Hi, I'm Chris Haigh and this is the Fiddle channel, and today we're going to look at Moondance. Moondance was a request for Karen. This is a really good tune for a fiddle player, even though there's no fiddle on the original. And you might come across it in a couple of contexts. It makes a good jazz instrumental, which the violin can very easily lead and play. And you might also find it in a pub type context as a song which everybody knows and most people love, including myself. It was recorded by Van Morrison in 1970 on his studio album of the same name, and 7 years later the record company realised it was actually a pretty good song and released it as a single. It's probably one of the most jazzy of his songs. It's got this walking bass, and because of this, as I say, it makes a really good jazz instrumental. I'm going to show you different ways of playing the intro. We're going to look at the vocal melody. We're going to look at the horn parts that are on the bridge and some ideas for soloing. So it starts off with the 2 or possibly 3 chords at the beginning repeated several times, and there's lots of different ways of approaching this. Probably the simplest one is to play the roots from A minor. Depending on who else is in the band, you may want to do a harmony, or you may want to do just that line, or you may want to do nothing at all. Because of the nature of the chord, there's actually lots of ways of harmonizing it. So you could play which is a fifth above what we just played and is also part of the same chord. You could play, that's quite nice. So we're doing open G, A, B on the G string and first, second, third on the D string. You could do a 4th finger on the D string and a 3rd finger below it playing the C note. That also fits, and that would work, which is a on the top, and that. Let me just play each of those in turn, not necessarily in the same order, along with the backing, so you can hear what they all sound like. Here's a 5th above up. Here's the first harmony. Here's the tricky one. So any of those, or even none of them, would work fine. Now let's look at the vocal melody, and if you were doing a jazz instrumental, then you would base your first time round loosely on this melody. So without the intro, we go straight into the verse and then into the bridge. Again, I'm going to go up an octave. Bridge. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. In fact, it's a bit too straightforward. You would want to jazz that up a bit, I think. The last part of the bridge, I think that's pretty close to what he sings, but what he sings is actually a bit vague in terms of melody. And that doesn't actually sound great on the fiddle. So do feel free to mess around with this melody. Now, when it comes to the bridge, on the original, you've got some really nice horn lines with a brass section and some flute. And I'm just going to show you what they sound like. And I'll give you a different backing for this, which has some of those lines in. Here we go. Now, if you were playing this in a pub with a pianist or a guitarist, and you didn't have all that wonderful backing going on at the same time, this actually I don't think is that effective. So you could try it by all means. I've played this lots of times and I've never done those horn lines because no one else was doing them. And quite often horn lines only work with a proper horn section. But you may decide that it sounds absolutely great and that's what you're going to do. Anyway, so you could just do a much simpler version behind the bridge bit if you wanted. Now let's have a look at the if you're going to do a solo. So you can base your solo around the melody, or you can improvise pretty freely. And you could use the A minor pentatonic. And that would work pretty well, even over when it changes to the D minor. You would still be able to get away with playing that if you were so crass. Let me play once round, and I'll just use the A minor pentatonic. And so on. I just ploughed straight on through over the D minor chord change, and it wasn't great, but we got away with it. And I even ignored, I think, the E7 chord, which I really shouldn't have done. Okay, next step up from the A minor pentatonic is the A minor blues scale. So here we have the flattened fifth. That's the first, that's the fifth. E flat is a flattened fifth. Just have a listen to what it sounds like played with that. So that's much more interesting and much more expressive. There's a couple of other things you can do. I did quite a lot of triplet runs, and there's one which is there somewhere on the original. There's a trill that the flute does, which is a E with a G natural. Simple and very effective, and something that always works nicely on a minor tune, especially a medium tempo one, is to dwell on the minor 9, which in this case is going to be a B note. Let me just play a little bit when I do the triplets, the minor 9 and the trill. And notice that time I did actually acknowledge the presence of the D minor chord, and it sounded so much better, as it does when you get to the E7 chord. If you play a G sharp or something like that, then that's going to sound a lot better. It shows you know where you are and what you're doing. Okay, so lots you can do with Moondance. It's not a difficult tune by any means, but there's a lot you can make of it. If you'd like a copy of the sheet music for this, then do subscribe and send me an email. The jazz style backing track I've got is available to my subscribers to the Patreon. And it's the Patreon that keeps these videos coming, so do please consider joining me there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.